Sahil Abedian?
He's one of the most abominable people that I've ever sort of had the displeasure of knowing about. I just can't believe that he's acted this way. And it's what he's done to the family, to Marcus himself and to our families, is just shocking.
There you go.
In July 2012, we stopped over in Dubai again on the eve of a hearing Marcus was sure would set him free.
What the Sunland letter does now is really close off on specific allegations towards me, and it's something that we've been really requesting and now demanding for quite some time.
But the following day, his hopes were crushed. Instead of acquitting him, a new judge ruled there should be a new review. After more than 3 years, it seemed he was back to square one.
It's just continual bewilderment.
We returned nearly a year later to find them still waiting. They'd given up thinking about going home. On May 20, Julie returned to court for the 40th time. Marcus stayed home. An expert panel had reviewed the case, but after all the disappointments, they hardly dared to hope. Then, suddenly...
So what happened?
It's just incredible.
You just walked in there and they said you're a free man?
Julie did. Julie went down there this morning and, and she rang me, and just unbelievable. Incredible.
Can you believe it, finally?
It's still sinking in. It's just, we're just trying to let it sink in. It just doesn't seem quite real yet. But
Sort of you're pinching yourself thinking, is this really happened or not?
We left Dubai thinking that for Marcus and Julie at least the worst was over, but their relation didn't last long. 3 weeks later, we were returning from another assignment and stopped off in Dubai. The prosecutor had just appealed against the acquittal.
I just remember getting the call from the lawyers, and we'd spent the last 2 weeks. You could actually see the physical change in both of us. We were laughing. We sort of were getting better sleep. We were just enjoying life. It was such a wonderful feeling. And then in the afternoon, I got a call from the lawyer, and he said that they've lodged an appeal. It's against all 4 parties. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't want to tell Marcus, because I thought, we've actually had some relief after all these years of stress and fear. And it was terrifying. I just thought, I can't do this anymore. It's been so long, it's been so hard.
For Matt Joyce, the news was far, far worse. He was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 10 years in prison and a $25 million fine. The treatment of foreigners like them had done nothing to dissuade tourism to the desert city. Thanks to Qantas sharing flights with the state airline Emirates, ever more were Australian.
And I know people laugh, oh, look, you can get thrown in jail for kissing or something like that and think it's all a myth, but it happens. It's real. It really does happen. Like one of the guys when I was in jail, he was in there because he was transiting through Dubai airport with a breast cancer awareness t-shirt that had a silhouette of a female on a pink breast cancer awareness t-shirt, and somebody took offence and he was in jail. I was in there with him, so I've seen this.
We began to wonder if Marcus would ever get home. After so many years, it seemed Dubai's authorities would never lose face by admitting they'd hounded an innocent man. But on the 10th of November, something extraordinary happened. A higher court threw out every charge against Marcus Lee and Matt Joyce. The decision came just days after Australia's new Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, had raised the case with the Crown Prince.
Okay, Dads, I always give you some, don't I?
Marcus and Julie ready to leave as soon as they'd organised quarantine for their faithful Yorkshire Terrier, Dudley.
Oh, good boy.
But Dubai would not let go so easily.
You've been through a lot too.
As they were due to board the flight to Sydney, Marcus rang his mother, Carol.
Marcus rang me at about 5 p.m. and said, "We've been held up at the airport and we're not on the plane."
It turned out their names were still on the airport's stop list. It was 3 days before the mess was sorted out and Carol could at last drive out to meet them.
I was devastated, but I thought, knowing Marcus, he'll sort it out, you know, and we've had many setbacks before, so this was just another one.
The final insult there, wasn't it?
It sort of was, yes.
Finally, the moment they had thought of for so long. Free of the United Arab Emirates, they could finally start to tell their story of the lost years, the endless fear, the terrible injustice.
Unfortunately, I've been caught up in the middle of a grubby dispute between a lot of self-interested property developers and, look, going through on the other side now, we just want to try and get on with our lives and start to not feel so threatened and see our family again and learn what they look like. And
Matt Joyce and his family were back in Australia too, the Dubai court overturning his conviction and 10-year jail term.
This period has been enormously difficult for me, Ange and my family. We went overseas and never imagined anything like this could happen to us. Now 7 judges in 3 courts across 2 countries have found me innocent. Justice has finally been served.
But there'd be no reunion between the two men who'd once shared a single bunk in Dubai's overcrowded jail, puzzling about why they were there.
No, it was very confusing, very confusing. Marcus and I would talk at hours on length of trying to establish what was going on.
So you just really had no idea what you were supposed to have done?
No, we got snippets of information, as much as we could, and we tried to piece it together. But it was very confusing. We effectively had no idea, Eric.
It was during that stretch that Marcus Lee first learned Matt Joyce was friends with the other Australian accused of fraud, Angus Reid of Prudentia. They'd attended the same elite school, Geelong Grammar, and worked on property deals in Australia. Emails obtained by Foreign Correspondent revealed the matey nicknames they gave each other.
They're basically claiming that you were a consultant to Prudentia, that you had some cosy arrangement with Prudentia. What was the relationship with Prudentia and with Angus Reid?
I did a job for them in 2005. Simple as that, a planning approval job. And as I said, it was broken down before. If I was a consultant for them, why wasn't that shown by the judges?
But this consultancy agreement obtained from court files asserts Matt Joyce was a paid consultant for Angus Reid's company Prudentia, and it was specifically about Middle Eastern properties. Then there's this. Remember how Sunland paid $14 million to Reid's company Prudentia to give up its development rights on Block D17? Soon after, Angus Reid transferred half the amount, the equivalent of $7 million, into Matt Joyce's bank account on Jersey Island.
But as the courts found, 7 judges found, it was a completely transparent, legitimate transaction that is part of every normal day business.
Emails between the bank, Joyce and Reid became the focus of investigators in Dubai. The Standard Bank of Jersey Island requested evidence in writing about the source and nature of the funds. Matt Joyce sent the bank his 2006 consultancy agreement with Reed as evidence of his complete transparency without further compromising my position with Prudentia. Angus Reed writes to the bank on the same day, stating the money represents 50% of the net proceeds pursuant to his commercial arrangements between Prudentia and Joyce. Matt Joyce says he can explain it all quite simply.
Prudentia didn't have a bank account in Dubai. They needed to hold the money in a trust account until they worked out their tax situation. So that was documented, approved after by lawyers and accountants, approved by Nikhil, all very legitimate. Sunland tried to twist it around to suit their own means.
Isn't it ironic that somebody would say, Mr. Reed didn't have any account, so I took exactly 50% of it to keep for him. Not 49.5%, not 61.2%, exactly 50% of it, based on the agreement that they have signed previously. If he didn't have an account, why didn't he leave all the 100% with him? Why would he leave only 50% of that?
A year later, around the same time Dubai prosecutors were asking questions about the D17 deal, Matt Joyce transferred most of the money back to Angus Reed. He kept $1.25 million, which he says he was owed from a previous property deal in Australia.
All the evidence, all the facts were before the courts. The courts have made an emphatic ruling that we were framed by Sunland for their ulterior purpose, commercial and personal gain. And you can't refute the facts, you can't refute the evidence.
Angus Reed never returned to Dubai and was convicted in absentia. He's now based in New York and declined to be interviewed. Sunland's Suhail Abedian continues to maintain his rage against Matt Joyce and Angus Reed.
If no one else knows, if you don't know, Matt knows what he has done. Angus knows what he has done.
So you wouldn't be scared of Matt Joyce suing you?
I love that. Please bring it on. Please, if you see him, say that is the only message that Suhail has for you. Bring it on.
Oh my God. I don't even know what's in there.
Marcus and Julie have come back to rented accommodation and a few dusty boxes they left in storage.
Oh, we do have a heater.
But their reputations and dignity are intact. On Australia Day, they were able to enjoy the national celebrations with family on Sydney Harbour. It was exactly 5 years to the day since he was arrested. Finally, Marcus and Julie Lee were home.
I've got to believe this gives me a foundation for something else, and I don't know what that is. I can't tell you today what it is. What I'd like it to not be is, if you ever Google my name, Marcus Lee Fraud, I'd like it to be Marcus Lee, person with Julie Lee, a person who survived, people who survived Dubai in a horrific nightmare.